Thank you. Good morning, fellow conservatives. Boy, what a great turnout here in Washington, D.C. today. Great to see so many young people, the future of America here, to be able to talk about what we need to do to get our country back on track. Listen, I bring you greetings from the Commonwealth of Virginia, the mother of presidents, the cradle of democracy, and we are thrilled that Virginia is still contributing, as it has for 235 years, to the cause of freedom and liberty here in this great country. Now, I'm here today with my wife, Maureen, of 36 years, and I'm delighted that she's been able to join us today. Guy, thanks for your great introduction, by the way, and I really appreciate what you do at Town Hall to be able to get so many people together to talk about the important things about our country. Well, this is a gathering of, I think, some of the 11,000 most important conservative activists in America, all here at one place at one time. Thanks for coming. We're glad to have you. You know, your presence here speaks volumes about your care and your love for this great country. Very few people, in fact, 0.5% of all Americans do what you're doing, that will actually show up at a political rally or knock on a door or put up a sign or work the polls. So you are to be commended for taking that freedom that our men and women in the military fight for every day and putting it into practice by coming here. Thank you very much for doing that. Now, I've come to talk to you for a minute about the American dream. And you know what that is. It's a fundamental American thing. It's a belief that in this great country, if you work hard, if you dream big, if you're honest, if you pursue opportunities, if you use your God-given talents to the maximum degree possible, that you can be anything you want. That's the American dream. It's uniquely something that our founders planted here 235 years ago. But I know, and you know, we've got a battle to preserve that American dream from the big government, statist Obama machine that we've seen governing for the last 3 years. That American dream was planted on the shores of Virginia, in fact, on the banks of the James River at Jamestown back in 1607. It was watered and it was given definition by the second governor of Virginia, Thomas Jefferson, in 1776. And I'm so glad that's the theme you've chosen now for your convention here, that we still hold these truths to be self-evident, because they are self-evident and we were endowed by our Creator, not government, with those. And then the work of other great Virginians, James Madison and George Mason, back in 1787, writing the greatest political document the world has ever known, the United States Constitution, gave further life to what we believe as a people. And so now it's a battle to preserve those timeless principles in that Declaration and the Constitution that this next 10 months and the future of the American Republic is really all about. And are you ready to fight for those principles that those people put in place? I hope you are. You know, I've got a story probably just like so many of you else in this room. 100 years ago this May, my grandfather got off a boat from Ireland, came through Ellis Island, May 25th, 1912. And he didn't come with much. Ended up in Boston, worked in a factory. Had a bunch of kids and told my dad, you know, work hard, dream big, this really is a great country. My dad decided to enlist in the Army. Back before there was an Air Force, he was in the Army Air Corps. Spent 3 years in England during the Second World War with the 8th Air Force. My wife's father spent a couple of years over in the Pacific, Iwo Jima, Okinawa, Saipan, trained my daughter about this American dream. So when my dad was raising me, just kind of an average middle-class kid in Fairfax County, he said, son, you need to do the same thing. You need to care about your country. You need to defend those liberties that for 2 centuries have made this the shining city on the hill. So I went in the military, spent 21 years as an Army officer in the reserves and on active duty. And then I passed that same thing on to my daughter. I'm sure this is a story that many of you have as well. My daughter was an Army platoon leader in Iraq about 5 years ago. And let me just And let me just say, during that time over there, it was her, Army platoon leader, 25 men working with her. And I have to say, there were a couple times when she'd call and tell me about that small arms fire that she encountered either in her Humvee or in the Black Hawk. And yes, I did get a little bit emotional. But she didn't. She got the job done. But that is the American dream that I've lived. I never thought that coming from a humble Irish grandfather that I'd end up with the same job held by Patrick Henry and Thomas Jefferson, the first two governors of Virginia. But that's what this election really is all about, is all of us having that opportunity, whatever talents God has given us, to use them to the maximum degree we can to serve other people and to make sure that those principles founded on the banks of the James River 405 years ago are still alive and well for your kids and your grandkids. It really is a time for choosing. You remember that great speech Ronald Reagan wrote, one of the great speeches of all time, 1964, in supporting Barry Goldwater and saying why he became a Republican. And so we have choices now to make for our country. These are choices between a vision of constitutional limited government and a constantly bigger and growing and expanded federal government. And it's a choice between whether we really believe and embrace the free enterprise system, where we believe that it is the private sector and people living in freedom, making their own choices, are the answer, or whether it's a growing government and a welfare state that will lead to liberty and prosperity. These are the choices that I think we've all got to make over these next 10 months. And I bet I know where you stand. And I'm asking you to make a difference so that limited constitutional government is what our legacy will be for America. You know, our founders were brilliant. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution clearly says the box the federal government is supposed to be in. Unfortunately, they keep finding bigger boxes to put themselves in and keep growing that government. The 10th Amendment, the 9th Amendment says that all the other powers go to you, the people, and to us, the states, respectively, because Jefferson and Madison and Mason, they believed that it was government closest to the people that governs best. Why? Because they listen better, they're closer to home, they're more responsive. That's the kind of government we want at every level. Wouldn't you agree? So when you get that formula wrong and you don't pay attention, you don't read the owner's manual and see what the founders said, guess what you get? You get $15 trillion in debt and growing, $3.5 billion of borrowing a day just to keep the lights on. You get an 8% unemployment rate for the entire Obama presidency. You get a failure to create policies that will actually stimulate the private sector, the entrepreneur, the job creator, the lover of free enterprise, the risk taker, the capitalist, the people that make this a great country. And you get more government programs that kill jobs and stifle job creation. And that's what we've got, and that's why we need a new president of the United States, don't you think? So we've tried to pay attention to that in Virginia. When I came in a couple of years ago, Governor Tim Kaine, former DNC chair, now candidate for Senate, left me a great president. It was a $2 billion tax increase and a $4 billion deficit. And we said, we're not raising taxes. We killed that. We cut spending by $4 billion over that time. We did the same thing again this year. And guess what? Fiscal conservative principles work. We had $1 billion in surplus the last 2 years. Those things work. But you know, it means that government's got to do what you do every day. In your business and your family, you've got to balance your checkbook, and you got to do it on time. Heck, this president hadn't got a budget done in 1,000 days. That's completely irresponsible. And who does he blame? He blames you. He blames Wall Street. He blames the Tea Party. He blames the American Republic. And 2 days ago, he blamed the founders. Can you believe that? Well, I'd say, Mr. President, take responsibility. You're the commander-in-chief. Get the job done. Quit making excuses. Let's turn this country around. So that's what we've tried to do in Virginia. When it comes to creating jobs, and making sure we believe in that foundational principle of the free enterprise system, not more government to create wealth and prosperity, we have said, look, we believe that success is good. If you make money because you've lived the American dream, we think that's a good thing. And we're not going to talk down to you and tax you more and raise more regulations on you and engage in class warfare. That's the wrong formula for America. We want more success, not less. And so if you tax it and regulate it, you're going to get less of it. So in Virginia, we said, look, we like the fact that we're the most business-friendly state in America. And we want more people to come to Virginia. We want to tell that Virginia story around the country and around the world, and we've been very fortunate, 6.2% unemployment rate, the lowest in the Southeast, third lowest in the Mississippi, east of the Mississippi. And so companies are coming to Virginia because they believe that we get it. And so I'm thrilled to have this opportunity to be governor of Virginia and to be able to talk about these kind of principles. Thomas Jefferson said that it's a wise and frugal government that you need in order to respect the liberties of the people. Ronald Reagan said something very important. We're engaged in a lot of work now to reform government, to be able to eliminate things like funding for Planned Parenthood and public television subsidies and programs that don't work. And so we are back to 2007 spending levels now in our general fund in Virginia. But we've got to make some tough choices in getting rid of some of these things that don't work. I love to quote Reagan's famous statement in that 1964 speech when he said that a government bureau is the closest thing to eternal life we will ever see on this earth. And so he's absolutely right. And so we have dispatched some of those programs. You know, what we have in Washington right now is a surplus of rhetoric and a deficit of results. What we need is results-oriented conservatism. You know, the Bible says something very important in the book of James. It says that faith without works is dead. Many of you probably have read that. Well, it's the same thing, I think, in the political sphere. If you have conservative principles that we've got to stick to, but you don't get results and fix problems for our people, you have ineffective government. We've got to be about problem-solving, can-do, results-oriented conservatives. I call that rock, by the way. You all need to be rocks. To be able to get things done for the people, because that's what most people want right now in America. They want government to get the job done, stay out of the way, let them pursue the American dream in this atmosphere of freedom and liberty. And you know what? That's what Republican governors are doing all over this country. I have the real honor right now this year of being the chairman of the Republican Governors Association. The last 2 years, because of great work by people like Haley Barbour and Sonny Perdue and Rick Perry, we've gone to 22 governors that we had when I got elected. Chris Christie and I won in 2009 to now 29 Republican governors. All right, that's just a good start. Now, with your help, our goal is to have the largest number of Republican governors in American history by this November, if you'll help us to get that job done. Because Republican governors are getting it done. 11 out of the top 15 states in America that are ranked to be the most business-friendly, governed by Republican governors. 7 out of the 10 states with the lowest unemployment rates in America, governed by Republican governors. Over the last year and a half, Republican governors, while President Obama's racked up $4.5 trillion of new debt, Republican governors have cut $65 billion in deficits around the country. That's results-oriented conservative, and that's what we need in Washington, D.C. You look at what people like Scott Walker is doing. Isn't he a stand-up guy in Wisconsin? He's got the courage to look people in the eye and say, look, if we cut spending, balance budget, and make sure that we have less taxation, regulation, litigation, unionization, Wisconsin will be more productive. And that's what you're seeing in that state. Same thing with Chris Christie and Rick Scott and John Kasich and a number of our other governors, several of you who are from this weekend, that are getting things done in their state. And I've got a goal to bump those numbers up dramatically in the next couple of months with your help, because Republican governors believe in getting results. Well, I'm here to tell you that's why I'm strongly supporting Mitt Romney for president, because I believe he's a results-oriented conservative. He's a guy Whether it's been as governor of Massachusetts, as head of a large private sector company, and turning around the Olympics, he's a results-oriented, can-do, consistent conservative. He's been able to get things accomplished, cutting $3 billion in deficit in Massachusetts, turning the Olympics around, creating over 100,000 jobs for people. That's, to me, the kind of can-do, responsible, conservative leadership that we need for the United States of America. So I want to close with a call to action. Freedom isn't free. Never has been, never will. It's always been purchased with the blood, sweat, and tears and sacrifice of patriots. People that are willing to go out and put on a uniform or a badge or a gun to defend your liberties because they love freedom so much they're willing to give their very life for the cause of freedom. So if they can do that, then it shouldn't be that hard for us over these next 10 months to take up the call to arms to restore the founders' vision of limited government and entrepreneurship and God-given individual responsibility in this country. Are you willing to do that for the next 10 months to be able to turn our country back around? I grew up just a mile from Mount Vernon. And my favorite president is George Washington, also my favorite general. But he was an incredible general, patriot, leader. And he said something profound that I want to leave you with in his first inaugural address that he gave in 1789. I think he expected it to ring throughout the ages as sort of a clarion call for what we need to do and what principles you need to stick to if America is still going to be the greatest country on earth. He said this, he said, "The propitious smiles of heaven can never be expected to remain on a nation that disregards the eternal rules of order and right, which heaven itself has ordained." I believe Washington was right. What was true and right at the founding of this country is true and right today. Values do matter. Character does count. Being allegiant to those foundational principles of individual responsibility, faith in God, care for those that are in need, having a strong national defense, having a limited government that respects the individual God-given talents of people to pursue the American dream without excess government regulation and taxation. That's what we planted on these shores in 1776 and what will still be the formula for making America great today. So remember those words of Washington. Stick to those eternal truths of order and right that heaven has ordained. If you do that, I can tell you there will be a conservative renaissance in our country, and we will have a new commander-in-chief, a new president, a conservative majority in the United States Senate, a record number of conservatives governing the states of this nation, and America will be the shining city on the hill once again. God bless you. Thank you very much.